everyone. I'm Maria Shamkalian, the Vice Chair of Pennsylvania Film Industry Association. Thank you so much for joining us today for the live webinar. And we have a very special guest today, Randy Greenberg. Thank you so much for joining us. Randy has so much experience in all the different fields of film industry, from executive producer to worldwide marketing and distribution expert to talent agency. There's just so much we can talk about. I'm very excited about it.
I swept the floor of a theater.
Oh my!
Coffee. I mean, so yeah, I've done it all.
That's fantastic, and that's actually what we want to hear. We would love to hear how you started out and how you got to where you
are. So I grew up in Omaha, Nebraska. So. In the middle of the United States, but I always wanted to be in this business. I went to the movies a lot as a kid, as a way to escape my, what I thought was an awful childhood. It turns out it was actually pretty good, but what did I know? And in doing that, I thought, movies are a great escape, and TV is a great escape, and I loved all of it. And when I grew up, the largest selling weekly magazine was the TV Guide, and which listed everything that was on during the week. Remember, when I grew up, there were only 3 channels: ABC, NBC, and CBS, and PBS. That was it. Those 4, three public, or 1 public and 3 private channels. And I used to look at the fall preview came out like the week before all the shows came out. And they would have 1 page in the TV Guide for every new show, and I would put in what would succeed and what would fail, and I got like a 95% success rate. I thought it would be fun. I thought if there's any job in the world, since I have to work and make a living when I grow up, that this would be kind of fun and wouldn't feel so much like a job. I came out here. I was an intern at Warner Brothers in accounting. So glamorous and amazing, right? No, but I got to see the real numbers, and I did profit and loss statements for every single Warner Brothers movie for like 30 years, and all of them made money except for 1. And I was like, hey, that's a business to be in. If movies, always make money, that's a pretty good business. And I stuck with it. So as an intern in accounting, I was an assistant manager at a movie theater, literally sweeping popcorn and, selling popcorn and peanuts and hot dogs and candy canes and all that kind of stuff, and selling tickets. And then I did anything and everything that was necessary, whatever I was called upon, for a PR firm. And the first movie I got to work on at that PR firm was Field of Dreams. And then from there was Total Recall and Basic Instinct and Terminator 2 and a whole bunch of another 200 movies past that. And one of the first movies I got to work on was Reservoir Dogs, and with a unknown Quentin Tarantino who used to work in a video store back when there was videos. And then I had a client that went to MGM and said, hey, would you like to come over and work at MGM? I said, sure. And then I ran MGM's International Theatrical Group, and then Universal's International Theatrical Group. They moved that job to London, and I didn't want to move there. And then I went to work for a comic book company, running the film and television group and the business affairs for 5-6 years, and then I got to start a talent agency from the ground up, and then I've become an executive producer. So I've been around.
It's very impressive, and I love how you started bottom up, so you can really
always.
So we're starting from the beginning, so that's such a wealth of knowledge. So what are some skills that one needs to have in order to become a good producer?
A producer?
Mm-hmm.
Thick skin. You have to have an unwavering determination to not listen to all the no's. because no doesn't cost anybody anything. The moment when somebody says yes in this town, they're $1 million price tags. You say yes to a television series or yes to a movie or yes to a director or yes to an actor. Like, I mean, they're $1 million checks. I mean, and even bigger, right? So you have to have thick skin because the no's are plentiful, and you know they're as easy to come by as turning on the tap and getting water. So that's one, and you have to have an unwavering determination that whatever it is that you want to make, you have to make it. Because the one thing you have to decide is producers don't get handed something and then somebody say, here, go make something. It doesn't work like that. It works like, let's see here. It works like this, that you get a book like this and you say, I have to make this book into a movie. I read it. It's amazing. It's funny. It's got a great story. It's got a great adventure, and I have to make it. And then you have to go find, and you have to stick with it. And the obstacles get thrown at you every minute of every day. Because the first thing that's going to happen is, who's the author? Is the author represented? Can you reach the representative? Once you reach the representative, do the rights exist? If they exist and somebody else doesn't have them, then you have to begin negotiation of what's it going to cost you to option the material. Can you get it for $100, right? Can you get it for $1,000? Can you get it? Is it going to cost you $5,000? And then what's it going to cost when you purchase it? And what's the author going to like? I mean, all of these things that wind up in an option purchase agreement, and you have to negotiate that. And even once you have that, you still have this and an agreement. You don't have a script, right? So, and is it a movie or is it a television show? And how do you see it? If it's a TV show, then you got to go find a TV writer, and not just not a TV writer, a TV writer that a buyer wants to work with. Somebody that creatively can both turn this into a television script that is funny, irreverent, and fun with a great adventure, but it can also be done on a budget that can be achieved, where the buyer sees it both creatively, like, wow, that'll be a lot of fun, and has a really good opportunity to attract an audience, but you know, it's not going to cost $10 million an episode. It's going to cost $1.5 million, $2 million, $2.5. Oh, you know, so, and the writer is, you know, someone, so you have to be tenacious and determined, and don't take no for an answer, because it is so, not only so easy to get a no, you're going to get no's far more often than you're ever going to get a yes, which makes the yes even so much, getting a yes, it's not like winning a lottery. It's kind of like the next step in a large lock, right? And you just got one lock open, but there's like 50 more you got to get open before you open up the truck that's got the money in it. So determination and perseverance and a thick skin.
How do aspiring producers make a transition from independent short films to actually studio features? How do you make that growth happen?
There's no aspiring, right? If you produce something, you're a producer. If you made a 5-second short, a 10-minute short, a 3-minute short, you're a producer, right? The length of the content is irrelevant, right? The headaches are the same. The money, director, actor, script, editing it, music, it's all the same, right? It's just the headaches get bigger as the time period of the material grows and as the budget gets bigger. The headaches just get bigger, right? The amount of sleeping you do gets to be a lot less. So, so you're a producer. Like, let's first say that. and the issue is really, it's more that you're moving from a shorter script to a longer script, right? So that means there's a lot more confrontation and issues between characters, a lot more dialogue, a lot more scenes, a lot more events that have to stick to the characters and make the characters interesting and make us as audience members want to continue watching those characters over and over and over again, right? Whether it's a television show or stick to the 2 hours, 90 minutes, 2.5 hours, whatever it is, which is the length of the movie. And the difference between television and movies today is really it's two things, right? It's the length, it's the number of episodes. So if it's one, that's a movie. The length of that episode, if it's greater than 90 minutes, 85 minutes, that's a movie. Or if it shows up on the big screen first before this small screen that we're all watching now, right? The differences used to be much bigger from a technological standpoint and a financial standpoint and so on and so forth. But I mean, now it's pretty simple. But once you make something, right, that's visual and it's online or it's television or YouTube or, on the big screen, you're a producer.
What are some ways for low budget and indie films to gain distribution?
So there's about to be a paradigm shift, and it may be happening as early as tomorrow, that the independent feature world is, again, as long as you can make your movie for the right budget, there probably is going to be a turnkey solution where there's automatic transactional distribution where the movie can have its own website or be connected to an iTunes or an Amazon, digital platform where you can sell the movie. So it's a PVOD, premium video on demand release, where you're paying $9.99, $14.99, $20.99, $29.99, whatever it is. And the independent filmmaker can sell, can do enough social media marketing and enough social media kind of banner buys and such that you can sell 50,000 downloads, right? 50,000 downloads at, $10, which, minus 30% can still lead you somewhere in the neighborhood of, somewhere between $250,000 to $350,000 back to you. And if you only spend $100,000 to do it, you can make money, right? That kind of turnkey solution is coming. There are several indies that are experimenting with that now, where it's literally direct to consumer digital download play. And it's their opportunity to control the distribution and therefore, in theory, control the revenue stream, rather than selling to an small independent that might give you $20,000 up front as an MG against, a 25% distribution fee, and they get paid back their P&A, and you never see any more money than the 20 grand. And yet that distributor may make $250,000, right? Because they're the ones that have the connections to the digital download, and they're the one that have connections to Amazon and Apple and so on and so forth. So I think that turnkey solution is coming for independent filmmakers. And for independent filmmakers that make larger movies, not the $100,000 to $500,000 movie, but make the $1 million to $5 million movie, they're still going to be looking towards the A24s and the roadside attractions of the world. But I think there will be a few more, like the Solstice Studios, that will come up that will offer more substantial MGs than 100 grand or 50 grand or 200 grand, where they'll offer maybe $1 million and their distribution fees will be slightly lower, but they'll start amassing a catalog, a library of films where they'll then be able to license that library to a SVOD player for a substantial amount of money per picture. So I think that's coming, but there's still an independent business. I mean, there still is, people still want to see, they don't always want to see big budget monstrosities at the theater. They want opportunity. They want options, right? We still want options.
What are some key characteristics to a project that producers need to ensure for the project to gain distribution? Basically, what sells today?
I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine. You know, I've been on the acquiring side, and I've been on the sale. I mean, and now I'm on the sales side, and I was on the acquiring side for well over a decade, and on the marketing of that for almost 2 decades, and now I'm on the sales side. So look, I think that a lot of things sell, right? It has to have some sort of resonance to a large enough audience that who you're selling it to can market that piece of material to that audience, to a large enough section of that audience that enough of that audience will show up and watch that piece of material, whether it's on the big screen or the small screen or streaming or television or wherever it's meant to be. Right? You have to be able to market it to that audience. And the best thing you can do today is that, and for those of you that are online at the moment, take this the right way, because it's meant in a nice way, that nobody today really wants to work that hard. So as filmmakers and as producers, we have to work harder, because the people that we're selling to, for the most part, are between the ages of 25 and 40. They get to be older, but the majority of the people are between that age group. And what they really want is they want a hefty weight of material given to them by you, that here's what we're going to make, plop it down on the desk, or right, or that you need a Dropbox in order to actually download it, right? They want some sort of visual that shows them exactly what they really want is they want you to go out and make it, right? At $50 million and whatever it is, like make it exactly the way it's ultimately going to come out, right? And then hand it to them, right? With all the marketing materials and everything done, right? And then they want to be able to give you notes that you can go back into what you've made and slightly alter it so that you make it theirs, right? But you've spent all the money, and now they can just put it on the air or go sell it in the exhibition. That's what they really want, right? But what sells? Horror that has a catch, that can be made on a really small budget, that isn't about the slasher aspect, but it's about the world that's being created, and where you can shoot it for $1 million, but yet it has a tangible quality to it that the sellable, marketable nature of it as a real opportunity to overperform. And that kind of falls into line with almost everything. The lower the budget, the lower the budget with the bigger star, the biggest director, the biggest producer that you can, that goes for film and television, by the way, that you can then give it to somebody who's another business who then sells to the consumer at the right price. Comedies still work, but half-hour comedies on television are becoming few and far between, because that business, which used to be a syndication play, you throw enough at the wall, and eventually one of them, like The Big Bang Theory or Young Sheldon or or something like that, Friends or Seinfeld and all of the others that have come after that, New Girl and all of those that come, like something sticks because you put 10 of them on the air, and one of them, in 1 year, and one makes it to the second, or two make it to the second year, and one makes it past the third year into syndication, where then there's a bucket load of cash comes, because that's what that business was. But there really is no syndication anymore. So that half-hour business has gone away. The hour procedural is pretty much dead, because the same group of people over and over again in a non-continuity dramatic format is not what people want to watch. The same characters in an episode after an episode after an episode that builds on the last episode. That's what streaming has brought us. So that type of business is kind of gone. And, you know, so it's a group of characters in a outstanding, you know, extraordinary situation where those characters are ordinary to be made extraordinary, are really what the buyers are looking for, whether that's comedic or dramatic or horror or whatever. Like, you know, that's kind of what the buyers are looking for, and a world that you can build on. Because if it can work in one season to another season to another season, if we can pull it apart and stretch it and pull out a couple of characters here and move them over here into something new, then we have Vampire Diaries that becomes the originals. And that's, you know, what is of interest.
What are some secrets to effective marketing of the film?
Well, that's really the difference today. As an independent filmmaker, years ago, you used to be able to like cobble together some money and make a movie that may not really have been marketable, right, or to a large audience. But today, you have to think of who the audience is before you make the movie, right? Same thing with the television show. I mean, it doesn't matter what you're making. You need to know who your audience is. You need to know where to find your audience. You need to know how big your audience is. You need to know what are the affinity brands to your audience, or the affinity music, or the affinity celebrities, or the affinity products, or the affinity services that connects to your audience, right? You and I might like the same thing, but we demographically we're separate, right? But somewhere there's a connection between us that is an affinity service, brand, music, something where you have, as a filmmaker, you need to find that, right? So do you bring on, you know, is that the type of music you put into what you're making? Is that the actor or the actress you go after that then is the connection for you and for me, right? So it's a different way of thinking, and you have to build all this in to how you create your material, right? So if you're, you know, about 10 years ago, not quite, there was all of these actors started assembling, you know, their Instagram and Facebook connections, right? Their likes and the people that were following them. And it started to come down to, you know, the person with the greater social media presence started getting the job. Now that is not just opportunistic, that is necessity, right? Vin Diesel doesn't just continue to get jobs because he's Vin Diesel. He can talk to almost 150 million people. I mean, it's just crazy. When I was consulting for him years ago, and this is when before Facebook ever became what it is today, before it was ever public, before it ever had this, he literally said to me, and I say this in my class, he said to me that I want to be the biggest star on, the biggest celebrity on Facebook. And I looked at him and said, why in the world do you want to do that? He said, because then I could talk directly to my fans. I said, so what? And he was so ahead of it, so ahead of the curve. And I applaud him for it. And he was right. And I was so wrong. And today that's just commonplace. And I didn't see it. I didn't view it as that, to be that. And that's exactly what it is today. And it's even going to be more so as stars that are, you know, have 10 million followers and 5 million followers. They can make a low budget movie and then go direct to consumer to sell it. And that changes them then from just being, you know, somebody who's, you know, a work for hire to somebody who's a filmmaker. And that's a big difference for indie filmmakers and for indie producers, you know, that you can really do that today. Pick the right people and you can start layering your marketing and your PR and your promotions, so that you can add these things into production so that they're marketable qualities when you're done. And that's really important today.
Yeah. Now, what percentage of budget should go towards marketing expenses?
Well, in theory, it's not in your budget, right? It should be, but it's hard enough to cobble together enough money just to shoot what you're going to make. Even when you're making, listen, even when we were making Meg, sorry, which one is it? Even when we were making Meg, we still, it's like we had a budget. It's not unlimited. Nobody throws more money at you. Oh, that's a really good idea. Let's add that. It doesn't work like that. You have a budget. And you got to work within your budget. So whether it's $5,000, $50 million, or $100 million, you still have to work within your budget. And it may seem like $100 million, how could you run out of money? So simple. Oh my God, it's easy, right? And that's why a really good line producer makes sense, is really important. But the only thing in marketing that's really in your budget is a unit publicist and a behind the scenes crew, right? To shoot material, get interviews, right? And then in theory, maybe cut material together. That's about it. And if you're lucky enough to be able to find the money for that, I wholeheartedly agree it's the right thing to do. And a whole marketing group is probably the right thing to outsource, a cutter and an editor just for that kind of stuff would be fantastic. But it's usually not there.
Now, what is the difference between working as an independent producer versus being affiliated with one of the major studios?
So I teach this in my class at UCLA Extension. So, and you can all take it because it's now online. So anybody who wants to take it, you can sign up at UCLA Extension. It's called The Business of Entertainment. And I literally talk about this. I talk about all this, actually. Mm-hmm. The difference between an independent producer, which is really a dependent producer, right? Mark Gill, who used to run Warner Independent and then the film department, and then now runs Solstice Studios, which just released a movie last weekend in the theaters of Russell Crowe. I forgot, Unhinged. Said this. He calls it really a dependent. The independent producer is really dependent on everybody in order to make something. He's not independent. He doesn't have the money himself, can't make the movie himself, can't do anything, right? But the independent producer has to, my dad used to say, you're the chief, you're the head chef and bottle washer, you're the janitor, you order all the food, you cook all the food, you have you have to do everything, right? You have to find the project, then you have to find the money, development money, to get it to a point where somebody might want to buy it. Then you have to find the writer or the director or the lead actor, and you got to negotiate with them, and you got to schmooze them and keep them happy, and you got to bring everybody along until you get to that. That's not even the starting line. I mean, that's kind of like that's kind of like practicing. It's it's the warm up to the marathon, right? The beginning of the marathon. But you got to practice and you got to work out for months and months and months and months and months until you get to the starting line. So the dependent producer, the independent producer, has to do everything. Whereas the studio producer can really function and solely look at creative, right? I found a really great piece of material, and I now, because I'm at a studio, I go to my rep at the studio, the creative executive I deal with, and I say, I found this really great book. And they say, great, we'll option it for you. And the studio's, business affairs people go and option it. Or they'll go find out if it's available. Or they can look online really quickly and they say, nope, not available. Yeah, it is available. We'll go get it. And they'll give you, they'll let you know 3 weeks later, they got it. They paid X amount of money for it. And now you can go to the writers you want to go to in order to write it. And then the studio works with you to go get a director, and the studio works with you to go get a lead talent. I mean, having a studio deal is great, but the only people that have studio deals are A-list talent, A-list directors, and A-list producers. Everybody else, right? The only other people that might be involved are producers that are connected to those directors, those writers, and those actors. right? Otherwise, the rest of us are all independent.
Okay.
I'm a firm believer creatives need to be paid a living wage. So that's the first thing, which is what the WGA, tries to do with their minimum basic, the minimum basic agreement rates, which I think are really important to pay. So I wholeheartedly believe that you need to pay a writer, at least that, if not, negotiate and pay them what they're worth, which I think is really important too. But the agreement itself is, it's a work for hire, right? You're hiring a writer to write, as a producer, you're hiring a writer to write the screenplay or the teleplay for the project that you're making, right? And, or you're hiring that writer for the creative that writer is bringing to bring to life whatever the project is, right? And maybe you're working together. But if you're the producer that has the option, has the rights, and knows what you want, then you're hiring a writer to execute your vision, right? They need to bring their creativity to it, but they're really bringing to the page what you want them to bring. And there are producers' writers, there are directors' writers, and there are writers' writers. And producers' writers are the ones you go back to time and again because they take all the ideas that you as a producer are giving them and they literally write it down on the page and they make it sing. And then the director's writer writes in a visual format so that the director looks amazing in how they're going to direct and talks about camera movement and what they're looking for and colors and all that kind of stuff. And then a writer's writer is the actor's writer, really. That's the writer who's writing for the soliloquy and the ethos and the depth and breadth of the character, which is all really important, mind you, all really important. But in the end, you have to sell it. So sometimes, writers can go off into the soliloquy that is too verbose and too unnecessary for the moment, and requires 3, 4, 5 pages of dialogue, which for the right character and the right scene is important, but usually not. So what's that writer's agreement? It covers the amount of money they're going to get paid, the amount of bonus money they're going to get should it go into production, if they get called back to rewrite or to polish, what that's going to be, and what their box office bonuses or ratings bonuses are going to be, or seasonal pickup bonus, like, are they coming back in season 2? And if they're part of, and television's different, right? So the writer's agreement for film is very different than television, because the television agreement, the writer's king, right? The producer is irrelevant, right? The non-writing executive producer is totally irrelevant, right? It's the writer who's the head writer, showrunner, creator, or showrunner, who's delivering creatively on time and on budget. That they're the kings, they're the kings or the queens, depending on whoever it is. And what they say goes. Whereas from a television standpoint, for me, I find material and find showrunners and connect them and then sell it. And then that showrunner gets to go on and make their stuff. And, I get, a nice credit and a fee, but, and I might have ideas about how it should go and where it should go or how the marketing should work and all that. But the day-to-day ins and outs for television is left to the showrunners and the writers that are in the writer's room. So I'm surrounded by writers who are amazing, and I am in awe of them every day. And for those of you that can stare at a blank computer screen and come up with something, and just pull it out of your head, more power to you. It's not something that I can do at all. As a producer, I'm meaningless without the written word, and and writers they're not meaningless without producers. They're still writers, right? But a producer, I can't do anything without the written word. I think the most important thing is that, and this is really hard, right? I know a lot of managers and agents who have writer clients where writing is not their day job, where they have another day job that pays the bills. But at night when they get home, right? Or when they get off, we get off the computer now that we're all working pandemically from home. That when you get off the computer, and you take your dinner break and you take dinner and then you go right back at it, and you go back to work on the thing that you're passionate about. And what my agent and manager friends and attorney friends who have writer clients that don't do this full time because they're not making a living. It's not that they don't want to, it's they're just not making a living at it full time. Or they don't make enough money yet to quit the day job. What I hear from them is these are unbelievable people. They work 40, 50, 60 hours a week already at a job, and then they pour their heart and soul into writing at night and on the weekends, and they're killing it. And it's my job as the representative to go get them that next job, so that way, or sell what they've got, so that way they can start doing this full time. And that is what every agent and manager and attorney, right, wants, to call up that client and tell them they just secured that deal or they just closed that deal, and now they can quit their job and they can do this full time. That is the phone call that every single one of those representatives wants to make. But the best thing is, when you're starting out, you need to find two things you need to do. Do not fall in love with your material after the first time you've written it. Do not send out the first draft to anyone that is a potential sale, ever, right? It's kind of like making the phone call after midnight to the person you shouldn't be making the phone call to because you've had a few too many. Don't do that, right? Don't do that. You want to put whatever it is you just wrote, right? You want to just hit file away. Here's the name of the file and the date that I did it, first draft, and file it away. Go on and write something else. Go on and do something else for like a month. Then come back to it and look at it again with a fresh set of eyes. And you will find like, ooh, why did I say that? Ooh, that doesn't work, right? And the same thing, right? You want to also send it out to a small group of people that you trust, who are going to give you constructive criticism on what it is you've written. Not tell you, oh, that's really good, good luck, yay. Nobody cares about that, right? You want to know your protagonist in this scene doesn't work because he said this prior and you just did this, and that makes no sense, right? You want constructive criticism to build on your characters, to build on the events, to build on the suspense, to build on the comedy, to build on ultimately what it is, the emotional release that you're giving your audience. That's what you need to do. That's what you as a writer are supposed to be doing. So you need people who can really give you that constructive criticism. Is so important, because the draft that you send to me, right, through your agent, manager, or attorney, because I don't look at unsolicited material, is that the draft you send to me needs to be at the place where you know it's the best place you can get it at this moment in time without having influence of the person who's either going to get it made for you or the person or the company who's buying it. So important. I know writers who make a living, who make a really great living, who still have that close-knit group of people they send their scripts out to, right? Whether it's film or television, right? That they send it out to looking for constructive feedback, and they're making millions of dollars a year. They still do it, right? Before they send it to their agent. Because all the agent wants to do is, in writers, most writers don't have agents because they fired them, or the manager, right? They're transactional beasts. They want to sell it because they don't get paid until they sell it. So, right? So they want it to be in the best shape it can be.
And when do you think it's time for the writers? How do you cross that bridge to getting an agent when you haven't sold anything yet? So agents want people who did something.
It is the hardest thing in the business, right?
Yeah.
But what I can tell you is this. It's really simple to get an attorney. Because attorneys will take you on for a per hour rate, right? It's the cheapest representation you'll ever have by getting an attorney who would then forward it to an agent or a manager. right? So you now have a representative. It just costs you $500 or $300 or whatever, but it's the cheapest amount of money it's ever going to cost you to have a representative send it to someone. Not just one person, right? You want to send it out to a whole bunch of people, right? If you're gonna get charged for the hour, you might as well send it out to a bunch of people. So have a list, and here's how it needs to go to, and right. That's what I would do, right? Fake it till you make it, right?
Yeah.
So I have an attorney. Of course, I'm represented. I have an attorney, right? And the attorney sends it out to the managers, right? Or sends it out to the agents. That's the first way to start, right? The other way is to network like crazy, and Zoom is, Zoom and Adobe Connect and all of those, and not Hideaway or Hideout, whatever it is, but all of those are really great. Like, people want to talk and schmooze, and we're all happy to do more work, right, from our homes, right, on the computer like this. So a lot more people are willing to take calls and to take a flyer, or just network, get in. Somebody knows somebody who knows somebody, and you got to be prepared for it. You need to know who they are, what they've done. You need to find some sort of mutual connection that you can exploit or manipulate or utilize in the call, right? So, oh, you're from Omaha, Nebraska too. So am I. When did you leave? Oh, I left then. Did you go to this school? No. Do you know that? Yeah, I know them. Like, you need to find common ground, right? It's called being in a relationship, right? It's no different, right? But you need to, but connecting and getting into a relationship is one thing. Then your material that you send has to work, right? On all thrusters, because so many people are writing and so many people want to be doing what it is that you're doing, that the competition is fierce. So whatever it is that you've got has to be amazing. Otherwise, it's a no.
Yeah.
And that's the issue today. There's so many people writing, so many people pandemically challenged, that everybody's writing and typing at home and creating. I mean, the amount of submissions that I've gotten is in the last 6 months is stupid. I don't even know where people are finding my email address, but I get this all the time, and I just delete them because I only work for representatives. But the amount of material I'm getting from representatives is stupid, right? So whatever it is that you've got, this is why I say, like, you have to reread it and rewrite it and go over it. Like, just because it took you 3 months to write it, do you know how long it's going to take to get it made? Meg was written in 1996. It came out in 2018, right? Wow. The last script, the script that ultimately got it made was written in 2014. So it can take 20 years to get to the big screen. It could take, 5, 6, 7 years to get to television. So just because you spent 3 months, 60 days, a year writing the script, peanuts, right? And now you want somebody else to as a producer. This is what I get as a producer. I don't get paid till we start principal photography. I make no money until principal photography starts. Well, I might make a little bit of money in pre-production, but once it's greenlit and you start building sets and stuff, I don't make any money until then. I could be working for years for zero.
Wow.
So as a writer, when you come to me, I'm taking a flyer. So it's got to be great material.
Now, 3 pieces of advice that you would like to give to our viewers, something that you've learned along this journey that you can share.
If you don't have a passion for this and you can't handle getting no's and you can't handle eating top ramen for a long period of time, don't get into this business.
Yeah.
That's one. You have to know that when you're on your deathbed, that no matter how many productions you were part of, whether it's 1 or 100, whether you got paid $1 or $100 million, that it was worth every moment of every day that you spent doing it. If you're not in that category, don't get into this business. because there's far more downs than there are ups. There's far more moments of depression than there are the elation. So you have to be able to weather that and get it for what it is. It's a business. This is not a miracle factory. This is not a dream factory. It's a business. Show business is the name, and business, the word business is a lot bigger than the show part. The show part is a nice dressing, but it's all about the business. I would advocate that every single, I think that's one. So every single person, go to law school.
Mm-hmm.
Go to law school to understand the efficiency of words. I'm not a lawyer, so I'm not a lawyer. I just business affairs, but I did not go to law school. My mother would have been so proud had I gone to law school, and she's so right. I should have, and she's rolling over in her grave, laughing at me and pointing at me, going, "I told you." But right, and it's part of the job that I really like, because there's so many ways to create businesses and create creativity and create opportunities with the written word on the pages of agreements. But there is an efficiency of words that comes with being a lawyer. There's an understanding of the business, which I think every creative really needs to know. And you need to get that it's a business. You know, there's more lawyers in this town than there are actors. And well, probably not, maybe not. But there's more lawyers than there are producers, that's for sure, and directors. So, and probably more writers. So that's an opportunity. And I think you have to come with, especially today. So I think that's two. And then the third one is you have to have a very distinct point of view, especially as a writer, right? You can't write something that's derivative, because by the time I read whatever it is that you've written, I've probably read 100 of something that's like it. So if yours is just another of the same, I stop reading after 20 pages. If I'm not caught and in love and just can't wait to get to the next page after 20, I put it down. And my response is, thank you so much for the opportunity and believing that I was the right producer, but I'm not the right producer for this, and this is a pass for me. Because there's no reason to get, unless somebody's really asking for constructive criticism, I don't give it. So you have to have an unwavering and very distinct point of view, because in today's world, everything is a niche of a niche of a niche of a niche of a niche, especially in television and even in film to a certain extent. That you gotta know it like nobody else's business, and nobody can do it like you can, and nobody's had that thought process beforehand. So
yeah,
it's one of the reasons I teach, because you don't make any money there's no money in teaching today, especially UCLA Extension. And I'm not dogging on UCLA Extension. I'm just saying, unless you're a full tenured professor at a 4-year university, you don't make any money. So I do it for a way to maintain connection to a younger audience, to be perfectly frank, because entertainment is a young person's business. And while I look like I'm 30, I'm not. And it's also a way for me to keep in touch with various aspects of the business that I don't necessarily deal with every day, like the home entertainment part of the business, or the clearances part of the business, or even in many cases like the theatrical bookers that deal with the exhibitors. Like but in my class we deal with all those sorts of people and and guest speakers and stuff. So it keeps me connected to that, which I really like. But I was in so many. I've been in so many meetings and so many negotiations where the person on the other side actually didn't know as much as they should know about their business, and it made it difficult to negotiate and make a deal. And so I vowed that I wanted to teach. I wanted to give back. I've learned a lot. I'm constantly seeking out knowledge in various parts of this business, and which is why I was in accounting, then I was in exhibition, then I was a publicist, then I was a marketer, and then I was a distributor, and then I was a manager, and then I was in a VC world, and then I was an agent, and then I was in a startup, and I was in another startup, and then I went into producing and executive producing and financing. So I've been in business affairs. So I've been on a lot of different sides. I love this business, and I love learning. So so if I can give back in any way, I enjoy it, which is why I do things like this. So when you reached out and you asked if I would do this, I was so pleased and honored to be able to be a part of your organization and the good that it does for its community, and if I can help in any way, I'm pleased to be able to do that.
Thank you. You really did help, and a lot of amazing practical advice that can really be applied. And I'm sure all of our viewers really enjoyed it. And I see a lot of great comments at your best, and a lot of thank you, and a lot of compliments to you, a lot of gratitude. So thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you, Maria. Appreciate it. And everybody, whatever you're going to do, be passionate about it and do it every day. Small steps, baby steps every day to get where you want to go. This is not an overnight sensation business. This is the 30-year overnight sensation business. From the time you've been doing it for so long, and then you succeed. But I applaud you all for being interested, being crazy, because I'm sure that all of your family and friends have said, "Are you nuts?" Right? Doctor, lawyer, accountant, computer programmer, right? Engineer. A lot of other things you could do. But thank you, because it's your creativity that ultimately keeps us from going insane when we are all stuck in a pandemic. So thank you.
Thank you, Randy. You're fantastic.
See you later.